national security and violates policy and law. I think it's something that should be investigated thoroughly.
But the president stated flatly that he leaked classified information.
He's got a much higher clearance. He may know something I don't. April.
Sarah, I'll go back to a couple of questions. When you talk about the issue of Don Jr., you said leakers. What do you think about the word whistleblower?
I'm sorry.
You're trying to say people who gave that information were leakers. What about the issue of whistleblower? What do you see whistleblower versus leaker?
I think this is a voluntary disclosure to include some of that information, and I think that it would be inappropriate for that to be shared outside of the scope of people that should have that information. So, John Gizzi.
Just one more question. So on the issue of collusion, are you saying there's no collusion when it comes to the overall arch of the campaign? But what about the individuals? What about individuals that could be suspects of collusion? Are you vouching just for everyone in total, or individuals, or what?
I'm saying that the president's campaign did not collude in any way.
So
that's
then when we go to different people. What do you say about that? Don Jr., anyone, the names that are coming
I would
up.
certainly say Don Jr. did not collude with anybody to influence the election.
What about Flynn?
To my knowledge, he did not collude with anybody to influence the campaign. Again, I think I've been very clear. Our position is that no one within the Trump campaign colluded in order to influence the election. I think the bottom line is that the Democrats had a weak candidate, and President Trump had a stronger message, and they're constantly looking for ways to undermine the president and delegitimize his election victory. John Gizzi.
Thank you, Sarah. Two brief questions. When the president arrived for the G20 summit, it was widely reported that the Putin regime was cracking down on the opposition candidate, Mr. Navalny, at the time. This has been just the latest in a series of events in which human rights and dissent have been crushed in Russia. Was human rights raised at all by the president in his conversations with Russian president?
I'm not sure. I'll have to ask John and get back to you on that.
All right. My other question is...
I knew there was a second one coming.
I don't care, the other one's coming. The president did talk privately with Chancellor Merkel, we know. Days before he arrived there, her party, the Christian Democratic Union, made a much publicized change in its platform and dropped its reference to the United States as a friend and changed that to important ally. Was this something that came up in their meeting, and did the president ask why she did that?
Again, I haven't heard that was specifically discussed, but I'll be happy to ask and circle back with you. Trey?
Two quick questions for you. Did President Trump discuss sanctions with Russian President Putin at the G20 summit?
I do know that it was mentioned specifically when you ask about sanctions. I know there's a little bit of a question there, and there were sanctions specific to election meddling that I believe were discussed, but not beyond that.
Did the president's views on sanctions against the Russians change at all after his meeting with President Putin?
Not that I'm aware of. Hunter?
Thank you, Sarah. This latest meeting with the Russian lawyer, we now have 3 instances where, including with Ambassador Kislyak and the head of the Russian bank, where Jared Kushner seems to have met with Russians and not disclosed it during his security clearance check. Is the White House at all concerned about that, and do you think it raises any questions about Kushner's competence or honesty?
I believe actually it was disclosed on his security clearance with an updated,
It was updated paperwork, not initially.
Right, with all of his contacts from during the transition and prior to that. They were all included in the update, not the original submission.
So I'm saying his omission in the original of all these meetings with Russians, is there any concern about that?
No, because it was just an incomplete form. All of his foreign contacts were listed in the updated version, none in the original. Sorry, Steve.
One of the subjects President Macron wants to talk to the president about is the Paris Climate Accord. Is the president willing to negotiate his position on this?
I certainly think he likes to keep all things on the negotiating table. At the end of the day, the president is very focused on making sure that he gets the best deal for the American people. He certainly wants to do things to protect the environment, as we have a history of doing in the United States. He's going to continue that practice and continue to encourage it, but also make sure that he's making the deal that's best for the American people. Thanks so much, guys.